Okay, this is Mindful Money Habits with Mandy Thomas, episode 23. And Heather, I will put the bio in another audio that I'll send you separately. Mandy, welcome to the Live on Purpose podcast. I'm
Thank
so
you so much.
freaking, I'm so freaking excited. Oh, I don't have all the words to say to express how excited I am to connect with you on the podcast. Finally, I'm so pumped it worked out.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you asked me to be on here.
Wonderful. Okay, this is Mandy and I connected online probably 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I just love that we both work in the online space, and when you're growing up, your parents tell you don't talk to strangers, and now we both do that as full-time careers. Like, it blows my mind. So that's how we connected, and we both have done a couple trainings together, some masterminding together, and then we've really run parallel alongside each other and just cheered each other on throughout our journeys, which to me is such a beautiful part of our relationship, because it's evidence that there's always room for everyone, right? There's success for everyone. So I would love, Mandy, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, can you just tell me who is Mandy Thomas and what led you to doing the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, so I'm an online financial coach, but it was really an accident that I do what I do now. So growing up, the household I grew up in, we really didn't have a lot of money. Like, money was pretty tight, and there was a lot of stress around money in our household growing up. And I knew from a young age, and so did my siblings, that my parents truly weren't meant to be together. And just seeing how someone is when they don't feel like they have choices and opportunity because of their financial situation is so disempowering. And that's how I got to experience my mom growing up. So from a really young age, I knew that I had to be the one in charge of my finances. So I started my first business when I was 11, and I became financially self-sufficient from then, because I just knew that I wanted to live a very different life growing up than how I did as a kid. So my dad always said, go get a good job. So I became a power engineer, really loved what I was doing. And it was so interesting because in my early 20s, I was making a six-figure income. I had no debt because I was managing my money super well. But I had extreme anxiety around money. But because I was managing it well, I made a lot of money, I didn't have any debt, I felt like I couldn't open up about it. I felt like I couldn't tell anyone because I was so worried that someone would say to me, we wish we had your problems. Like, it's all just in your head. And I had really no idea how much this was basically kind of ruining my life, this scarcity mentality that I had around money. And so it first started off as anxiety, but I didn't know it was even connected to finances. And from there, it just kind of cascaded. It was a lot of digestive issues, kind of all of the digestive issues. The anxiety got worse, and then it led to brain fog. And that's where it felt like my world was really falling apart. Was I was 25 years old. I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's because I just couldn't remember anything. And I thought that something was externally happening to me. Like, I thought, oh my gosh, I went to all these doctors and I did as much as possible to figure it out, and finally realized that actually what it was I had such a scarcity mindset that I was just so afraid of losing everything I had built up, because and I want to just give context, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. It was a perceived financial struggle I had, because by the time I was 26, I had already saved $200,000. So I was not even remotely close to living the life I did growing up. But because nobody was talking about money back then, there was no one talking about your money mindset, I had no idea that the two were connected until I left my job as a power engineer, went back to school to study holistic nutrition. And when I was away at school, I was a very science left-sided brain. And at school, we started talking about the body-mind connection, and really everything came together. And at the same time, I was also working with a coach myself for my anxiety and binge eating, because for me, the anxiety would lead to binge eating. That was kind of my way to cope with the pain that I was dealing with. And when I realized the connection here and I opened up to my coach, she was the first person I opened up to, and I said, the reason I'm feeling this anxiety in my life and I turned to binge eating is because of how I grew up and how I feel about money. But I'm so scared to say to anyone because I'm so deathly afraid that no one will understand how bad it is for me, in my internal world, how scared I am every day. I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. But I know, quote unquote, it's not a real thing. If you look at my bank account, it tells you a very different story. And it was me going through and really healing those wounds that I had, and realizing feeling like I actually truly am abundant. And even if I did lose everything, I've gained these skills. But it was that journey of me learning, like, calming down my nervous system and realizing like I am very abundant, and just working on the things that my parents had said growing up that I heard that basically caused me to live in a internal scarcity all the time. And when I really worked through that, it was incredible how my whole entire life, I felt like I got a second chance at life. I was able to overcome my anxiety. I overcame my binge eating. I really cleared up the digestive problems that I had. My energy levels were better. Like, my entire world completely changed. And that's when I realized that I needed to help people out with their finances, on their cash flow management, because there's a lot of people that will help you with your taxes or with investments, but there was no one to help you with like the behind the scenes managing of the 99% of the time with your money. And I went, if this is what I went through from a perceived financial situation or financial struggle, what about everyone who's out there who isn't managing their money the same way I am? It has to be worse for them. And I wanted to be able to talk to people about their money, not just about the numbers, not just about paying off debt and saving money, but from like how you actually feel every single day, how it affects your sleeping. Like, I was an insomniac for 3 years. I was on sleeping pills for quite a while. I now no longer have to take them, but like, every single thing in your daily quality of life is affected by the root of your stress. And for a lot of people, it's their finances. So that's kind of what led me to where I'm at now.
Okay, so first of all, so beautifully told. Thank you. You speak so eloquently. And there's every time you and I get together or connect like this, I'm like, right. That's why we make such good friends, because we're so similar and yet different. Like, I'm so insanely right-brained, and I would argue that you have a strong left brain, but both together, like, I just feel so connected to so many parts of your story. And I think that the most important thing that anybody could take away from all of that, which it was so full of value, but the most important thing anybody could take away from that is the root of my stress. The root. You talked about the root cause. Instead of what's my symptom, I have to put a Band-Aid on it. You said, what's my root? I have to heal that. And then when I heal that, then I will correct everything else. And you talked about how your financial situation was indicative, and connected to your physical situation. It's holistic. Like, no part of our life is ever separate pieces. It's all pieces of the same whole that work synergistically. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. First of all, you dropped a lot of really helpful tidbits in there. I wanted to ask you something. Well, two things actually. Number one is you talked about abundance mindset. You talked about scarcity mindset. I'm so curious. I'm assuming you do, but do you have a gratitude practice, and what does it look like?
Yes, so that was one of the big things that I started off doing, was journaling and gratitude. And I remember when I first started my gratitude practice, I was writing 5 things down every day I was grateful for. And during that first week, this was years ago, I was like, wow, I'm probably going to run out of things pretty quick. Like, that's how kind of naive I was at that time. And it was so beautiful to see that the longer I went, the more grateful for the littlest, tiniest things that it's so easy to take for granted. And so that was a big thing for me, was going, you know what, even on my worst possible day, even if I did lose everything, I'm still going to have a place to live. Like, someone will let me live with them, whether that's a family member, a friend. I am still so blessed, because even on my absolute worst day, it is somebody else's dream day. And I really needed to focus on that, because I was in a suffering state. I was choosing to be kind of a victim. I didn't realize it at that time, but I was in a suffering state. And you can't be in that suffering and state of gratitude at the same time. So it was really, when I shifted to that gratitude, it made such a big difference of me to help me shift out of that suffering. So I just take and really just think about, what is it I'm just so grateful for today? And then just sitting and like really feeling it like in my heart, of like, instead of just, because before I used to just write it down, but now I want to actually feel it. Like, I really want to give that gratitude to the things that are the simplest of things. And it's honestly been such a game changer. And I use that a lot with my clients, especially when they are very stressed in the beginning of us working together. And it really is just helping to shift, because the more we focus on the negative, the more we're going to get that. So the more that we focus, as you know, on those little tiny great things, the more great things are going to come along, that we're going to notice them, and we're going to feel better internally.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually reading Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks right now. It's phenomenal. Like, if you want to learn about the law of attraction and finally have a full understanding of how you create your reality, like a lot of people hear you create your reality and they probably think, yeah, that's all fine and dandy to say, or it looks good on a bumper sticker, but what does that actually mean? You know, what does it mean to focus on something? And the more you focus on something, the more it expands. What does that mean? Why do I always seem to be drawing these shitty situations to myself? Or why do I keep drawing the same kind of like crappy partner to myself, or whatever the case may be? So highly recommend that book. But this leads me right into the next thing that I wanted to ask you, because, okay, you said that you use some energy work with your clients, and you have a billion certifications, which I love. And you and I got to connect actually over doing lifestyle meditations, certified meditation teacher training, which I love that we have that in common as well. But you're also trained in emotional freedom technique like EFT and NLP, neuro linguistic. What's the practitioner? Programming. Thank you. So can you just tell me, first of all, do you use those certifications in your own life? And also, do you use those techniques with your clients when you're working through their money mindsets and their limited childhood beliefs around money, et cetera?
Absolutely. So I always use everything in my own life first to see how it is that I like it, see if it's something that I want to use on a full-time basis really consistently before I ever use it with my clients first. So for me, tapping was something that I really wasn't sure about when I very first started doing it. And then once I understood like the actual behind the scenes of why it actually works, like, okay, so when I use tapping with my clients, a lot of times people will use like affirmations and different things, and we're just trying to use all these positive things, which is great, but we're not getting at like kind of those negative things, and we really do have to address them. Like, we do have negative thoughts around money. We do feel negatively around different things about money. So what I do with my clients when I use tapping specifically is we will start with kind of a negative round. And the reason that we do that, so you tap through the 8 kind of meridian energy points of your body. So there will be one on the top of your head, there will be one by your eyebrow, on the side of your eye, and then there will be 5 other ones after that. And so you're tapping through them, and we'll do the negative ones, saying the negatives out loud, because what we are doing is we're not trying to attract more of it. That's not what it is, because I know that scares a lot of people. When you tap through the negatives, what you're doing is you're calming down your central nervous system from being so reactive to them. So what we're doing is just trying to calm your body down, basically, to just feel, to take and go to a neutral feeling is what we're trying to do there. And then we'll do the next rounds of the positive of like, what do we really want to amp up a lot more? So then your body can really feel those positives more. Because if we just do the positives, we're really not addressing like those things that the specific phrases that your parents said growing up, you know, like money doesn't grow on trees, and, you know, we can't afford that, different things like that. So we need to kind of go through those rounds. And then I love using NLP as well to really challenge my clients when it comes to limiting beliefs, and really seeing like, is that truly what you believe, or is that what someone else said? And is it actually true? Like, is that a universal truth for everyone in the world? Or is it a generalization that you have made around something? And really, a lot of times it will challenge the clients, and they'll kind of take a step back, because it's the first time anyone has challenged them on something like that. And they're like, wow, you're right. I actually don't believe that. And I don't want to choose to continue believing that. And then it kind of goes into more of like their money story, like what has happened up until this point, really like seeing like how your parents, your mom and your dad, like specifically and separately, handled money and talked about money. Like, what did that look like in your household growing up, and how has that affected how you manage your money, how you think about earning money, saving money, spending money? So really, it's to help my clients to overcome like the thoughts that have really been subconsciously playing out and holding them back since childhood, because the way that we handle our money and think about it is honestly mostly from what we heard and seen and felt from ages 0 to 7. And it's really, really true, because if you sit down and really just give yourself that space to just write, and non-judgmental to your parents either, like they absolutely did the best they could with what they had, but we have a lot more knowledge and resources now, so we can challenge those things and then choose differently. So we don't allow basically these kind of scripts to keep just playing out in our life, of how like a lot of times you can pay off debt, but you may go back into it and there's kind of a cycle there. Well, we want to see what's actually going on at the root of that cycle. Or maybe you will put some money into savings and you dip in and out of it and different things like that. So really just challenging you so you can transform and live a different life financially than you have your entire life leading up till now.
Well, and recognizing that you are fully responsible for you, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome. And I think something that is worth mentioning twice here is that sometimes people don't know to even question those beliefs. You don't know until you know. And when you know better, you can do better. Those hold very true, you know? So when you get to choose to look back and you get to choose and really reflect on, okay, where did I come from? What were my childhood money beliefs? How did my parents or guardians interact with money? How did they talk about money? How do I talk about money? Do I believe this? Is this universally true? Is this true for me? Who would I be without this thought, right? Like Byron Katie's The Work is applicable here too. It's so important to question. It's to, and the way that you get into a questioning state is you give yourself enough space and silence to question, AKA you allow yourself to sit in meditation for a certain amount of time each day. And it kind of all comes back to just, habits and that kind of thing. So thank you so much. I love that you have those certifications. I love that you're using it with your clients and just asking the challenging questions that don't get asked on a surface level in our modern day society. It's all, who are you? So what's your name and what do you do? What's your status? It's not, are you fulfilled? How are your limiting beliefs? Have you worked through your shit? Can I help you with that? So I'm going to jump on a limb and because I already know this, but I'm still going to ask you, you have so many certifications. This is something that you and I are both obsessed with, is personal growth. What's your stance when somebody says, or a client comes to you and says, Mandy, I'm broke. I can't afford to buy that training or go to that event, but they still want to up level. What's your stance on investing in personal growth?
Yeah, so I think you need to take in kind of whatever information you can at whatever level you're at. But I also think when you do take in free information, which is great, it's so great that there's so many free resources, but you don't have skin in the game. There's no accountability. So it's real. If you want a true transformation, free information really doesn't give that to you. You need to be doing something that makes you a little uncomfortable. So let's say, for example, a lot of my clients, when they come to me, we're working on their finances, but it doesn't mean that they have that sitting in their checking account to pay me every single month to work with me. So I'll be completely honest and transparent. Most of my clients, when they first come to me, do have to put me on their credit card, even though we're also simultaneously paying off their credit cards at the same time, because I'm teaching them a completely new system of how to manage their money. I'm going through everything with a fine-tooth comb with them. We're really going through, they are getting the most transparency they ever have. And it's so cool to see my clients can pay off $40,000 in credit card debt, that it's incredible to see they were able to do that and pay me at the same time. So just know, when you invest in personal growth, it's really the greatest way to get a return on your investment, because you are the one who is in control of whether you get an ROI back or not. You have full control over that. And it's really important to know that. So if it feels uncomfortable, and let's say, you feel like you don't have money at first, ask yourself, how can I be resourceful to get this transformation? So I'll give an example. There was a coaching program, actually, Marie, it was the very first one that we were supposed to do together.
I knew this.
And it was a few $1,000s, this program. And I had the money to cash flow it, but I said to myself, I want to be resourceful and not use what I have in savings. I want to make this money happen. So I set an intention and I went through my house, and I've already, at this point, had already sold $10,000 worth of stuff around my house. So it's not like this was the first time I did it. And I was able to come up with that $3,000 to pay for that coaching program. And I live in a community of 500 people. So I had no idea I would get that much sold, but I set the intention. I really put it out there that this is what I wanted to do. So that's something I tell my clients sometimes too, is go through your house, figure out how you can be resourceful to create this money.
Oh my gosh, I love
so many ways that we can do this nowadays. You could also call, you could get your credit card interest rate reduced. You can save money there. There's so many things you can do. So that's why the important thing is to shift from the question of, from you just saying, I can't afford this, because that has a period at the end. It's like literally closing the door. But when you say, how can I afford this? That's an opportunity. You're opening doors to see what you can do to make that happen. So really, just question yourself a little bit further, because it's so easy. It's like our natural tendency to just say, I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. When actually there's a lot of times you can make it happen. And The other thing is, don't look at just the short term. You need to really look at the long term. So if my clients looked at the short term, none of them would have worked with me. None of them would have paid to have worked with me. But when we look at the long term, and I can say, hey, this is how the trajectory of your life will change, not just you paying off this much in credit card debt and your savings account growing, but your relationship with your partner improving because you're not fighting so much, your sex life literally improving, your eating habits improving because you're not stress eating so much, you're sleeping better. Like, you really need to take stock of all the ways you can improve when it comes to you having skin in the game and being held accountable.
I love that. And that was something I was going to mention, like along the lines of when we were talking about affirmations and a gratitude practice. Affirmations only work if you really believe them. So you can create these beautiful affirmations, but if you don't truly believe it, or you're still fighting these limiting beliefs and, root cause beliefs, it's not going to work. And a lot of people will be like, yeah, affirmations are bogus. They don't work. Well, they don't work if you don't believe them. So you really have to get to the root of that thought. And one of the ways that I've found, one of the affirmations I've found to be really helpful, instead of say like, I'm so wealthy and abundant, and you might not believe that statement yet, but you might instead use language like, I am willing to find new ways to open abundance into my life, right? I am willing just kind of takes the pressure off. And it's such a nice little interject that you go, oh yeah, I am willing. Okay, I'm willing to see it a different way. So I feel like same thing when you got so resourceful to pay for that program, which we have such parallel journeys that every time you speak, I'm just like, yep, that too. Okay, that too. But Bran and I have been on this minimizing journey since before Marie Kondo was cool. But we've been minimizing for the last 4 or 5 years. And there came to a point where I thought, man, we do not have any more stuff to sell. There's no way. And when it came down to it, we went through a couple closets, went through a couple of drawers. And of course you can sell things. I'm sure most people listening to this, there is always a Lululemon pair of leggings or 6 that could be sold easily in your local buy and sell. And people scoop it up, or we had a couple extra iPods. And I said, why do we have these iPods? We do not listen to them. We use our phones. Sold them. Brand sold a vehicle. Like, you just getting creative and getting resourceful it's everything. So I'm curious, Mandy, are you willing to share, what is like the most insidious money leak when you start working with clients? And you said, oftentimes they'll have to put your payment on credit card in order for you to help them then pay off their credit cards, which I love. And that's like the exact example of, you have to invest in yourself to see the return. That's so beautiful. And what a nice parallel. But what would you say would be, when people come to you, what's the most insidious money leak for them, or the most common one?
Yeah, so definitely across the board, every single person, groceries and eating out, and not meal planning ahead of time. Like, that is the number one thing that every single person can improve upon. And it sounds simple in nature, but it takes you really committing to, and I think sometimes people forget, like, there's meal planning and then there's meal prepping. There's the two. And a lot of times people don't even do the meal planning ahead of time. So what I tell my clients to do is I say, okay, let's take a look at what's going on this week. And I want you to figure out 7 supper meals. Like, start with supper, because it really is the biggest, kind of most difficult meal for us. So figure out from there. And let's say if like Thursday is absolutely insane for you. Okay, I want you to consciously decide then you're either going to do a crock pot meal on Thursday, so it's really easy, or Thursday is the day that you are going to choose to eat out. You're going to make that conscious decision. So then for the other 6 meals that week for supper, decide ahead of time what you want, and then cook enough so you can have it for lunch the next day. Because a lot of times everyone's totally fine. What I actually see is a lot of times people are okay with eating leftovers for lunch, but sometimes some of my clients, like sometimes like their partners or their husbands, don't as much like eating leftovers for supper the next day. It's really actually interesting. So I say start with supper and just figure out what are 6 meals we can have this week. And just going from there, and then and then the other thing is like, look at what you already have in your freezer. Like, there's so much stuff. There's meat, there's probably frozen vegetables, stuff for smoothies. Like, go through your freezer and use that stuff. And then go through your pantry and see what types of stuff you already have in there that you can use before going out and running to the grocery store. And it's the average family of 4 wastes about $1,500 a year. So just think about like that one expense, and you need food for the rest of your life. So, that's 15 grand over the next 10 years. So that's a really, really big one that a lot of people don't think. So what I actually tell my clients to do, I have lots of tips and tricks for saving money there, but the fastest way is to actually use cash for your groceries. So what I have my clients do is twice a month, they take out cash. So they'll take out cash, use it for 2-week period. and then take out cash for the last 2 weeks of the month. And they correspond that with the day after they've been paid. So, or the day of them getting paid, they take it out from the ATM. And as you start to see that cash going down in your wallet, it's so much easier to put back those like 7 extra things that kind of like somehow manage to infiltrate your cart, which are actually probably things that aren't as healthy for you. So it's kind of a bonus there. And it's easier, like lots of my clients say, like, it's so easy for me to just say no to things now, which is better for your health then too, and put it back, because you start to see the cash actually dwindling down. So I recommend you just to try it. And when I tell my clients to try it, trying it means giving it a solid 90 days, because it's a skill. It really is. Like, we've only used our debit cards and our credit cards for so long. And when we use our debit and credit cards, we spend about 12 to 24% more. So right there, you start really saving a ton of money that can be put towards investing in yourself, paying down debt, increasing your savings, like so many other more important things to you.
God, I love that you brought this up. I love that you talked about this. So, okay, couple things. Number one, I used to be that person, and it was healthy food though. Here's my, like, one of my, part of my no buying, Brandon and I are doing a shopping ban for 2020. So we both read The Year of Less by Kate Flanders. Awesome book, highly recommend. And we decided, let's make 2020 our year of our shopping ban. And so there's an improved buying list and a few other things that could be another conversation for another day. But the last couple of months, I've been so hyper-focused on getting better at not putting extra things in my cart, because when I go grocery shopping, I feel so abundant. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love mindfully making the list, mindfully going to the store and deciding which apples do I want this time, which chives do I want, what olive oil I'm going to choose this time. And I love being so intentional about this. And that's everything that you just said, was be intentional about your planning. Like, look at your schedule. What do I have? I think we schedule every other aspect of our lives. We know when our kids' dance or soccer is for the next 17 weeks in a row, but we haven't scheduled in our workouts or meal planning or like any self-care or rest or anything. And we just treat it as an afterthought. And it's like, why is that not the priority? In other cultures, like especially in European cultures, it's flipped. It's, what are you doing to live a good life? And then also, oh yeah, by the way, what do you do for work? Not the other way around. So I love that you brought that up. I love it so much. Okay. I want to talk to you about one, maybe two more things. And then I think we're running out of time a little bit. But you mentioned something that people can do to improve their finances would be to take out cash. And I love that as a tip. I love that as a trick, because when we've been traveling or anything like that, you have to take out cash when you're in different countries oftentimes, right? I mean, you can still use a credit card, which is easy for hotels and that kind of thing, booking planes. But oftentimes you need cash for your everyday expenses, your meals, your outings, whatever you're using it for. So I love that tip. Do you have one other tip that is an easily implementable tip that they can start today with?
Yes. And I share this one because this one makes such a huge difference. It's one of the first things that I walk my clients through. So figure out what your random and non-recurring expenses will be for the next 12 months. So what even those types of expenses are, those are ones that aren't your monthly fixed expenses, and they're not your day-to-day expenses. So there's 3 types of expenses. Your fixed expenses, which everyone's pretty good with. Those are, your rent, insurances, your cell phone bill. And then day-to-day spending is typically like your groceries, eating out, gas, pet food, that sort of thing. And then your non-recurring and random expenses, those are ones that are like travel, gifts, clothing, anything that you might pay once a year or even less often than that. Vehicle repairs is another one. So what I have my clients do is we figure out for all of those different types of ones, how much that total will be for 12 months. So let's take travel, for example. Sit down and really go through how much travel is actually going to cost you. And like what I do with my clients, it's so easy to underestimate how much travel is going to be. Like, we even factor in if they have a pet, they're going to need to take it somewhere. So we want to include how much it's going to cost to board their pet for a week or 2 weeks. So really the whole entire amount, as good as you can get. We figure out what that total is for the year, and then we divide it by 12 to get what do you need to be saving right now every single month. So when it comes time to travel, you can cash flow that expense. But I don't have you just put it in your savings account, because everyone who's listening right now, you have a savings account, but you're saving for like 5 different things in there. And there's no transparency about how much you have saved for each of them. So I literally have every single client that works with me, they open up a separate savings account for every single one of these random expenses. So all my clients have a travel fund. All of them have like a gifts fund, and gifts, we only typically just think about Christmas, but we forget about all the other things throughout the year. So we really walk through how much gifts are actually going to cost and what feels good. All my clients have a clothing fund because, you know, you might need to replace some shoes, some winter clothes for your kids, that sort of thing. So figure out what all those are, divide it by 12. So then when that expense comes up, instead of it just going on your credit card because you have a higher expense month, you're able to cash flow it every single month. And when my clients make that first transfer into these accounts, it is like a huge accomplishment. They feel so good. And what I recommend to do is to make these transfers the day after that you have been paid. Don't wait until the end of your paycheck because there's typically not going to be anything left. So you need to put this money away ahead of time. So if you're paid once a month, you would do all your transfers at once on, let's say if you're paid on the first of the month, you would make these transfers the second. If you're paid on the 1st and the 15th, you would split them up between do half on the 2nd and half on the 16th. If you're paid bi-weekly, you would basically do the same. This fundamentally completely can change your life just implementing this tip alone. And it goes such a long ways because then also you're not putting things on your credit card, and it really helps to get your credit card debt or other debts paid off too.
That is so inspiring. You just totally inspired me to open up 2 more savings accounts to save for my specific things because I travel so often during the year. Like for 2020 already, I have, I think, 5 trips, which I'm so excited and grateful for. But that, you know, and Bran and I do a similar practice where we write down everything that we're going to be spending for the year. And this year, more than anything, I'm my most mindful I've ever been because of that shopping ban that I mentioned. And we have a very similar thing. It's okay, what are the fixed and recurring payments, like, you know, car maintenance and coach fees or this podcast, whatever, you know, that comes out monthly, my phone bill, that kind of thing. But then the shopping ban includes things that are extra. It's like, okay, do I really need to buy clothing, accessories, or jewelry or backpacks, or do I really need that sale? Is it really never going to be that cheap again? You know, so I love that you talked about that. And I love the tips that you gave. I think anybody listening who is having a little bit of difficulty with their finances, you have such a pragmatic and down-to-earth approach to this. You never make anybody feel like you suck for getting into debt, right? You're flawed. You have a very real approach, and because you come from a place of doing it yourself, you know, you're such a good example. So I know that you do have a course, right? What, I can't remember what it's called though.
Yeah, it's called Intentionally Rich Living, and it's really the cash management, learning, okay, when I get paid, what do I need to do with that money to achieve the goals that I have? And really just walks you through those exact steps based on your pay periods.
Cool. Okay. And where can people access your courses and to work with you if they wish to?
Yeah, so you can check me out on my website, mandythomas.com, and Mandy is with 2 Ys. For my course, you can just reach out to me on Instagram would be the best place, and I can send you more information on it. You can check it out. I'm at Mandy Thomas with 2 Ys again on there, and that's where I'm most active. I share a lot of stuff about finances on my Instagram stories, so I would love the person listening if you would send both of us a message about what your biggest takeaway was from this podcast episode. I would love to hear.
I would love that too. Put it on your Instagram stories and tag us. So Mandy Thomas with 2 Ys and Ray Barker Wellness. And just to double check, Mandy, your website is mandythomas.com.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to link that in the show notes also, but I just wanted to make sure I covered that. Okay, this has been so freaking valuable. Like I have so many questions that I feel like maybe we should schedule part 2 because I'm like, no, we don't have enough time to talk about all the things that I want to talk about. We like barely touched the surface on childhood money beliefs and a couple other things. But this has been so valuable, and I know that a lot of people will get so much out of this. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't or that came up for you during the chat?
I just want to just add something really quick and just say taking small and consistent action is the most amazing thing that you can do. Because a lot of times people think you need to make this great big change and then the changes never get made. So even if it's like, I see a lot of people waiting to invest like for their retirement so long. So what I would rather see you do is like cancel a small subscription that you really don't need. Because I see that's a big area that a lot of my clients can improve upon when they first come to me. And set up an automatic payment right after the day you've been paid. So for example, if that subscription you cancel was $15 or $50 a month, cancel that subscription, but then go ahead right away and set up to put that money to your retirement. So just change where it is you're going to, and don't keep on waiting until quote unquote things improve, because that's so arbitrary. Take small actions now you can build upon, because that's really what's going to add up to you in the end.
Gosh, that's so valuable and so true across all spectrums. You know, when I start working with a client on their wellness, their health and fitness, something that comes up is, I think I'll be happy when, and I'll lose the weight when, and I'll start working on my digestion and investing in good nutritional dense foods and supplements when. You know, we kind of like put it into the future, and then it takes the responsibility off of us, and we don't have to ever actually do the actions and do the things towards that. So that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I have 2 last questions before we wrap up. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, first question. What does live on purpose mean for you?
To me, it means just being intentional with your life. It means not allowing your life to happen to you, but consciously deciding what you want for yourself and being consistent to live your life in a way of how you want to really feel. And that means being intentional with your health, what you eat, how you move your body, how you spend your time, diving into your finances, like improving all areas, because living on purpose really means owning the fact that you're the creator of your life, because it is within your control.
Oh my gosh, beautifully said. Okay, and what is one thing that people can do today to create more intention in their lives?
So definitely, like, first setting a goal, especially like, let's say for your finances, because everyone talks about goal setting, but so often I see people haven't actually done it. And physically write it down, like pen to paper, not on your computer. Because if you don't set a goal, you're not going to get somewhere amazing by accident. Like, you need to set the intention of where it is you want to go and be really, really specific about it. So if it's, you want to pay off $5,000 in credit card debt by X date, like really make it very, very intentional. There's no way that I would have saved $200,000 by 26 if I hadn't set super specific goals. It really, really works. It sounds simple, but being that intentional is what's going to lead you to the life that you want to live and to feel the way that you want to feel.
I'm still blown away that you saved that much money by that age. So congratulations again. That's such a big deal. This has been so awesome. Like I said before, I love connecting with you. Every time we connect, I get this like little hit of joy. I feel like I can go and do anything right now. I'm all jazzed up. And I just wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say thank you so much for showing up with such integrity and so honestly and passionately as you do online with your clients, with your friends, with me on this conversation. So thank you so much for showing up, and I can't wait to get this conversation out to more people.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to the person listening to this today.
We can't wait to hear from you guys. Let us know what your greatest takeaway was from this episode.